everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be testing out a new concealer from Lancome. This is called the Teint Idole Ultra Wear All Over Concealer. So this launched a couple of weeks ago. I think I was on vacation when this launched. So when I got home, I went ahead and picked it up, and I've been wearing it off and on ever since I got back. So I've worn this half a dozen times or more, like probably 6 to 8 times, maybe even 10. I don't know. I've worn it quite a bit since I got it. So I have a lot to say about this concealer. So today I'm going to show you guys how I apply it, show you my preferred way to apply it. And then of course I will do a 6-hour check-in. I will do a 12-hour check-in so you guys can see how this wears throughout the day. So this concealer retails for $29 and you get almost a half ounce. You get 0.43 ounces, which is 13 milliliters. That's quite a bit of concealer for the price. This is considered to be a hydrating, lightweight, full coverage concealer that brightens dark under eyes and covers imperfections without creasing or caking. It also provides 24 hours of hydration and comfort in a natural matte finish. It's a ultra blendable formula with a precise tip applicator that you can target dark spots, blemishes, and redness without settling into fine lines or creasing. The concealer can be worn on its own or together with the actual Teint Idole Ultra Wear Foundation. Now, up here on the screen is an image of what I look for when I'm reviewing concealers, what my skin type is, how old I am, what I like, what I dislike. I always think it's very important for the audience to know what the person behind the camera likes and dislikes when they are reviewing, especially complexion products. When it comes to foundations and concealers and powders and stuff like that, they all have different skin types, and we also look for different things and want different things from our complexion products. So I always think it's very important for you guys to know that. Now, the 2 shades that I chose 410 Warm for spot concealing on the face, and I chose shade 330 Neutral for my under eyes. Now, of course, I will swatch these shades next to other concealers that I have in my collection, but I will also leave a list in the description box down below of popular concealers that are out on the market and what shades I wear in those concealers, so you can also use that as a reference. So that's what we're doing in today's video, you guys. It's all about this new concealer from Lancome. Let's go ahead and jump into the application. I'm going to show you guys how I prefer to apply this. And then of course I will do a 6-hour daylight check-in. So I'll take you guys outside, show you guys up close what it looks like. You guys know I like to get up close and personal, sometimes too up close and personal, but you know, we're all friends here. And then of course I will come back and do my 12-hour check-in, and in my 12-hour check-in I will get into my final thoughts and give you my full thoughts on how I feel about this product and what I like and what I dislike. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump straight into the application, and I will see you guys all in my final thoughts. So right now I'm testing out a new foundation. I felt like it might be the perfect time for me to share my experience, my thoughts on the new concealer from Lancome. So this is 410 Warm and this is 310 Neutral. I have been using the 330 Neutral, but I think if I repurchase it, I will get maybe something in the 300s, but it with a warmer undertone and not the neutral. Because I've worn this several times, I felt like it would be easier for me to come on camera, share my experiences with it, you know, kind of give you some tips on how I apply it versus showing the footage of the first time that I applied it. As I've gotten used to the formula, there are some tips and tricks, so I felt like that might be easier and more beneficial. I'm going to use a brush and a sponge. My favorite brush to use with this concealer is this one from Sonia G. This is the Jumbo Concealer Brush. The doe foot on this is really nice. As you can see, the doe foot applicator is really quite big, and it kind of hugs the under eye in a really nice way. I really like the applicator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe off the applicator. This has always been my trick. I like to wipe off the applicator and use the concealer that's down into the applicator to spread it out versus putting a big glob of it on and then spreading it out. So wiping off the applicator for me is just key. So I've just got it wiped off. Now I'm going to take what's on the sponge and I'm going to apply a little bit of it right here. And I'm also going to take some and put it like right here. So now I'm going to take the concealer brush and I'm just going to kind of stipple that in and kind of use the brush to spread out the product. So that way I get a nice even application, but I did not put too much on because I didn't really put a glob of concealer on. So that definitely works for me. So now I'm going to take my sponge and just kind of push that into the skin and make sure that I don't have anything setting, you know, any extra sitting on the skin, because I have found with this concealer, you don't need very much. I like to bring my concealer down over this part. Some people don't. That's just a personal preference, but I can't use a lot of concealer down on that area. That's the reason why I wipe off the applicator. I use the concealer that's kind of inside the sponge so that I'm not really putting a lot on, but I'm able to use what's on the applicator to really spread it out, but not putting globs of it on, right? And I think this looks absolutely beautiful. This concealer has a nice radiance to it, as you can see, and it doesn't really emphasize my wrinkles. As many of you guys know, I don't set my concealer with powder. I do put powder right here in this area. If I powder, I will put the powder like right here in this area, most of it, and then whatever's left on the brush, sometimes I'll bring it and put it up here, but most of the time I keep the powder just right here in this area. So because I have maturing under eyes and I've got more wrinkles and stuff, this is not a concealer you can use a lot of. It's just, it's so important to use the least amount that you can. It blends into the skin beautifully, and it does cover. I wouldn't say that this is a full coverage concealer, but I would say it's a decent medium coverage. So it's claiming to be a multitasking buildable coverage concealer, which I could see it's probably buildable, but here's the deal. If you have maturing under eyes, I wouldn't do any kind of building coverage. If you have any dark circles, I would use maybe a color corrector to kind of correct some of the dark circles and then go in with the concealer. But I really wouldn't try to build up coverage with this concealer. It can get thicker and kind of start sitting on top of the skin, and it won't really like melt into the skin because it's a thicker consistency. And the more that you pack on, especially on those thin under eyes, the thicker it's gonna get and the heavier it's gonna look over your wrinkles. So right now it is 9:56 in the morning, so it's almost 10 a.m. So I'm gonna wear this all day. Again, this is not the first day I've worn it, but I will be doing check-ins today. So I will do a check-in in 6 hours and 12 hours. When I do my 12-hour check-in, I will get into my final thoughts. So that's it for the application. I will see you guys in my first check-in. Okay, so I am back for my midday check-in. Right now it is 5:12, so I've had this concealer on for about 8 hours. I'm sitting out here on my front porch. I'm gonna zoom you guys in and show you guys how the concealer is looking. Okay, we're gonna get up close and personal, but can you see how it kind of settles into these tiny little fine lines? You can kind of see it like right here. It emphasizes all of these little teeny fine lines. So, I mean, for me, I don't know that this is my favorite on the fine lines. Like I said, you have to use the smallest amount. And even though I wiped off the applicator, used a tiny amount, it still did it. Now, every time I've worn this concealer, it does this. Now, even if I do it traditionally, like not wiping off the applicator and I just put like a dot here and then I spread it out with a brush, or you know, wiping off the applicator and putting a dot here and a dot here. It doesn't really matter how I apply it. I always still get a little teeny bit of that emphasis of those fine lines and wrinkles. But I mean, that's really up close, right? But from afar, it actually looks really good, and it's maintained the coverage pretty good. I don't think this is my perfect color. I think this color is a little bit too cool toned, even though it's a neutral tone. I feel like it's a cool tone. So I don't know, it's not my favorite color. And when I notice the color is when I'm out in the daylight. When I'm in my house or in the filming lights or something, I don't really notice the color of it as much. But when I'm out in the natural daylight, that's when I notice the color kind of looking a little bit too cool toned on my warm skin. Now you guys will see that in the swatches, which will be up after this check-in, but this is a pretty concealer. It's not my like absolute favorite, but it is a pretty decent concealer. So that's it for the midday check-in and the 6-hour check-in in the daylight. We're gonna go ahead and jump into the swatches, and I'm gonna swatch it next to a bunch of other concealers that I have. And then of course I will be back for my 12-hour check-in, which will be my final thoughts. So I will see you guys then. Okay everyone, I am back to give my final thoughts on this new concealer from Lancome. Right now it is 10:57 at night, so it's almost 11 o'clock, so I've had it on for about 13 hours. Let's go ahead and pull you guys in so you guys can see my under eyes, and then I will get into my final thoughts. Okay, I'm gonna turn down the ring light because the ring light always makes things look better. Okay, so as you can see, all of my fine lines are exaggerated. Now it has been like 13 hours, right? So I've had this concealer on for a really, really long time. And I think it looks pretty dang good for being on for 13 hours. I've had concealers look much worse than this. And I mean, it doesn't look bad. I just feel like my under eyes are a little bit dry, and I feel like they need a little bit of moisture. This isn't my favorite concealer, but I don't hate it either.
Okay,
So let me go ahead and get into my final thoughts. Now, first things first, I do like this concealer. I think on a scale from 1 to 5, I would give it like a 4.5. My only complaint with this is that I do feel like it exaggerates my fine lines. I have felt that way the entire time I wear it. I've seen it all day today in my check-ins. It does exaggerate my fine lines. So to me, that is a negative of it, but it is a really beautiful concealer. It blends out really beautifully, and I feel like it does cover the dark circles, and it continues to cover the dark circles. I mean, this is 13 hours later, and my under eyes still look really good. So I really don't have a lot of the darkness really peeking through yet. I mean, you can see it a little bit, but this isn't considered a full coverage concealer either. So I think the coverage on this concealer holds up really, really well. Now, you guys know that my favorite concealer right now is this Tarte Ultra Creamy Shape Tape. I do not like the original Shape Tape. It is too drying for these aging under eyes. But the Ultra Creamy is, it is perfection. I've been using this since I first got it. They did like a pre-launch in like October or November time on the QVC website, and I picked it up, and I've been using it ever since. I've been loving it ever since. So for me, this takes a lot to beat. My second favorite is the By Terry Hydra Concealer. I really, really like this concealer. I really like the way that it looks on my under eyes, and it even has that like semi-matte finish, but it doesn't emphasize my wrinkles or anything. And I would say this is very similar to this new one from Lancome. I feel like this one might cover the fine lines more than the one from Lancome, but the one from Lancome I feel like is, number one, a way better price, and number two, it has way more shades than this one from By Terry, like way more shades. There are some upsides to the Lancome versus the By Terry. So I would say this one kind of reminds me of this one from Dior. This is the Dior Skin Correct, and I really like this concealer as well. I would say these two are very similar. The only difference is this one kind of goes on and kind of blends out and gives like a smoothing effect. The smoothing effect stays, but the smoothing effect also will emphasize the wrinkles. The Hourglass Vanish concealer was my favorite for a really long time, and I still do really like it, but I think I actually like the Lancome more. I think the Lancome gives the same kind of smoothing effect that the one from Hourglass does. I think it looks prettier throughout the day than the one from Hourglass. So I think the Lancome one's gonna replace my Hourglass. I really do like this. I think it's a good concealer. I'm gonna continue to kind of play around with it. And I will say that one of the days that I wore this, I think it was yesterday, I put on eye cream before going in with this and I had better results. So if you have fine lines like I do, I would recommend going in with a good eye cream and kind of just, you know, really patting it in and kind of pressing that eye cream in and then going in with this. The other thing that I want to mention is that if you have a pore smoothing primer, you can put a little bit on and you can bring it up right there on those fine lines and kind of blend it in and then go in with this, and that will help as well. Because that is my only complaint about the concealer, is that it does emphasize my fine lines just a little bit more than I'm comfortable with. But it is a pretty concealer. I think Lancome did a great job. And truthfully, this is what Lancome needed in their line. The Teint Idole has been such a major seller of their foundation for so many years. And the concealer was a necessary piece in their collection that they needed. Will it replace my Tarte Ultra Creamy Shape Tape? No, but it will be in my rotation. So there you go. So that's it for the video, you guys. Send that down below in the comment section. Have any of you bought this concealer? I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. Share with us in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me in today's video. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in my next video. Love you. Bye.